Hi, this is Jyoti here. Welcome to Jopat Tech Guru. In today's session, I'm going to discuss regarding the best practices which we follow in ASP.NET MVC. We are having many things concerned with the controllers, views, as well as models. So let us go on discussing all the best standard practices. If you have not subscribed yet to my channel, please subscribe it and click on the bell icon to get the notifications of my new videos. As per the MVC architecture is concerned, those who are working as a developers, if you are using this MVC architecture, you are already aware that what exactly the models, controller, and views is all about. So what is a model? First of all, it is a class. So within the entire project, whatever the classes are there, you are going to define them within the models. Models are often shared among the different sub-applications of a web application. Suppose if you are having a login form model, may be used by both the front end as well as the back end of the applications. A news model may be used by the console commands, web APIs, and the front or back end of the application. So therefore, model should contain properties to represent specific data. You're going to define the classes, you're going to define the models, wherein you are having some specific set of properties or the data. These should contain the business logic to ensure the represented data fulfills the design requirement. We are looking for the backend support towards the design. So that we are going to design it using the models. So models may contain code for manipulating data. For example, a search form model, besides representing the search input data, may contain a search method to implement the actual search. So you are going to have certain models which can be shared, which can be used in varieties of ways, multiple ways. So in general, models should not contain logic that deals directly with the end users. More specifically, models should not use get, post, or any other similar variables that are directly tied to the end user request. Remember that a model may be used by a totally different sub-application. Example, unit test or web API that may not use these variables to represent user request. So these variables pertaining to the user request should be handled by the controller. So usually we are not writing any of the logic inside the models. It is purely a set of class which represents a specific data or the specific set of properties. Models should avoid embedding HTML or other presentational code because presentational code varies according to the end user requirements. So whatever the views you are going to design it, that is entirely different, and we are not adding any of the views content within the models. So what exactly view is? View is the presentation layer wherein we want to present the data. Ultimately, the end user is going to see this views itself. So views are responsible for presenting models in the format that end users desire. In general, views should mainly contain presentational code such as HTML and simple PHP code to traverse, format, and render the data. Views should avoid containing code that performs explicit database queries. Such code is better placed in models. So whenever you are having a little bit of code concerned with the database and other things, you can always put them in the models rather than adding them in the views. So views should contain what? Lot of HTML content or lot of HTML codes which represents the information about your project. So views should avoid direct access to get, post, or other similar variables that represent the end user request. This is the controller's job. The view should be focused on the display and layout of the data provided to it by the controller and or model, but not attempting to access request variables or the database directly. Views may access properties and methods of controllers and models directly. However, this should be done only for the purpose of presentation. So mainly we are highlighting on the presentation aspect. So we are not writing a lot of code here. If at all some database queries are there, you can place them in the models. We are not writing anything concerned with the get, post, or any of the requirements with respect to the views. So whenever you are dealing with the database directly, the controllers are there through which you can go ahead and apply the logic. So views can be reused in different ways. So you can use in partial views, layouts, widgets, as well as helper classes. So layouts, these are just like your master pages in your ASP.NET. Some of you are already working as a developer. You might be aware about the ASP.NET concepts. So try to refer the ASP.NET master pages if you don't know the layouts. Then you can start learning these layouts. So usually the layout is a common presentational areas that can be put in a layout view that can be referred throughout your project. Partial views to reuse the fragments of presentational code. How we are having the user control. Once you define it, you can keep on calling them any number of times in the ASP.NET web pages. Similarly, you are having the partial views. Widgets, if a lot of logic is needed to present a partial view, the partial view can be turned into widget whose class file is the best place to contain this logic, and as well as the helper classes. So in views, we often need some code snippets to do tiny tasks such as formatting data or generating HTML tags. So whenever you're going to represent the entire set of HTML, so you can always use the HTML helper tags. So what are controllers are meant for? Controllers are meant for adding the business logic. These are the glue that binds the models, views, and other components together in a runnable application. Controllers are responsible for dealing directly with the end user request. So therefore, controllers may access get, post, and other PHP variables that represent user requests, may create model instances and manage their life cycles. For example, a typical model update action, the controller may first create the model instance, then populate the model with the user input post. After saving the model successfully, the controller may redirect the user browser to the model detail page. Note that the actual implementation of saving the model should be located in the model instead of the controller. So most of the things, most of the logics, we are going to write it inside the controllers. So with a typical update action, the controller may first create the model instance, and then you can populate the model with the user input. Controllers should avoid containing embedded SQL statements which are better kept in models. And controllers should avoid containing any HTML or any other presentational markup. So do these things, you have to keep it in the views. So as per the controllers, best practices are concerned. Decouple your controllers. Dependencies of the controller class on data access layer, web services, etc. make a controller logic difficult to understand. Use an IOC container like Ninject to reduce these dependencies. Use a PRG pattern, the post redirect get pattern, in order to use the correct HTTP verbs. So for each and every action, HTTP get, post, put, delete, patch, like this, you are having so many HTTP verbs. Create slim controllers. This should contain much less code. You should not write so much of business logic over here. Always use view models. Always try to use view model instead of dynamic view model dictionary. Delete the demo code files. So whatever the standard things are there, you can just use them. Later on, rest of the things you can keep on cleaning it up so that it will be clean. And what about the model best practices? Say no to business logic. As we are writing mainly the specific data or the properties, we are not highlighting it with respect to the displaying of the things. Views should not contain any business logic and must be clean. All business logic must be performed inside the controllers. So the main intention of doing this MVC is clean code. We are having the separation of concern. It is not like ASP.NET, wherein everything we are doing within one single project. No JavaScript in views. Don't place JavaScript inside the views. Create separate script files for the JavaScript. So again, if you want, you can go ahead with the external JavaScript file, write all the code over there and try to refer it. Write an HTML helper for conditions. If we find ourselves writing if statement, write an HTML helper for it to hide if-else code from the view. These are the few best practices of the models. What about the other best practices? Cache your data. In order to reduce bandwidth consumption and increase application performance, we can use caching to store data in memory so that application does not need to generate same content every time when the same action is called. You can cache your entire data so that it will reduce a lot of time as a developer. Bundling and minification. Calling to multiple resources like CSS files from one HTML page can hurt our application performance very much. Bundling group all of these resources in one downloadable resource. So minification can also accelerate our application performance by removing all unnecessary characters, white spaces, as well as comments from the CSS files and scripts. These are the few of the best practices with respect to MVC. Hope this video has helped you to understand all the things concerned with the MVC. So let us meet again with our next video. If you have not subscribed yet to my channel, please subscribe and click on the bell icon to get the notifications of my new videos. Thanks everybody. Take care.